So Joseph, how many Marvel-themed items of clothing do you own?
Quite a bit. I have a Captain America t-shirt, a Deadpool t-shirt, an Avengers t-shirt.
I don't need a full rundown, but it sounds like they're all t-shirts, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, but what if you want to show your comic book cred during, like, a job interview or an event? Like, really stand out and represent.
With t-shirts, I couldn't.
Weak! Lucky for you, Marvel and DC both have a line of men's fashion accessories available at cufflinks.com, who is sponsoring this podcast episode. Items like Superman neckties and Captain America shield cufflinks, their selection of geek gear is amazing. And if you use code DUEL15 on cufflinks.com, you get 15% off your total order, with no minimum purchase from now until the end of 2020.
Sweet, now I can dress like the geek I am, and still look fly as hell.
If our listeners want to show off their comic book cred in style for free, Cufflinks.com is helping us run a giveaway where 2 lucky listeners will win either a Batman silk tie or an Iron Man paisley tie. To enter, all you have to do is visit Cufflinks.com, check out their Marvel and DC sections, and send this podcast a message about what you think is the coolest product they have. If it's a Marvel product, Marvel gets a point. If it's a DC product, DC gets a point. And the side with the most points by November 15th will declare the most stylish superhero company.
As always, you can reach out to us via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send us a message on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, the links to which are in our episode description. Thanks to cufflinks.com for helping us set up this promo, and remember, you can get 15% off anything in their store with the promo code DUEL15. Check them out now.
On with the show! Hi, welcome to the Dynamic Duel Podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And welcome to episode 200! 200! We've done this 200 times!
That's insane. We're in our 5th year now of the show. January will mark the end of our 5th year. We've done 200 episodes. We've reviewed a ton of movies for you guys, simulated tens of thousands of battles. We've given out awards, we've laughed, we've cried, and we've had a blast creating this podcast for you guys. We want to thank all of our executive producers and anyone who's ever supported the show via Patreon or donated to any of the charity episodes that we put on. It's just been a wild ride, and I'm just so proud of the show that we've created so far.
And we're just getting started.
I don't know about that.
Well, for this monumental 200th episode, we will be pitting the Justice Society of America against the Fantastic Four in a team duel simulation.
Yeah, right. This is our 3rd team duel. The first one we did was for episode 100, and that was Justice League versus Avengers, the big flagship teams of Marvel and DC. For episode 150, we pit the Titans against X-Men, who are like the cool teams of their respective universes. And now we're putting the classic teams against each other. JSA was DC's very first superhero team,
and the very first superhero team in comics in general.
And Fantastic Four is Marvel's first family. They're not technically the first Marvel superhero team. That's kind of the Invaders. And some people have asked why we didn't go with the Invaders team against the JSA, and that's really for several reasons. The Invaders includes members like Captain America, the Human Torch, Submariner. They're not strong and varied enough to go up against the JSA. And the second reason is that Invaders were actually a retcon. They were developed 8 years after the Fantastic Four to tell stories that were set in the Golden Age. In real life, the only true Marvel super teams that existed before the Fantastic Four were the Young Allies, which were mostly civilian children fighting Nazis alongside Bucky and Toro, and there was the All-Winter Squad, and they only fought alongside each other for 2 whole issues. So I consider the Fantastic Four to be Marvel's first real developed team. So we're going with them as Marvel's classic group.
Right, and we'll get into the rosters and the matchups later on in this episode. Before that, we're going to break down the comic book television news from the past week, of which there was only one major news item to really talk about, and that's that Oscar Isaac is set to play Moon Knight for the Disney Plus television series.
As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic.
we want to give a quick shout out to our new executive producer, Zachary Hepburn. He joined us on Patreon last week, and now he gets to help steer the direction of the show, helping us choose which films we're going to review and some of the matches that we run. He also gets a variety of other perks that you yourself can get by going to patreon.com/dynamicduel.
Yeah, we have big news for our patrons and our listeners in general. Jonathan and I have developed and created a Marvel vs. DC card game called Dynamic Duel War that we're going to be releasing on Black Friday this month. So if you want to learn how to get the game, be sure to join us on Patreon, where we'll give you all the details.
One last thing, just a quick reminder to please subscribe to our show if you haven't already. And if you have, please help us grow our podcast audience by leaving a quick rating or review on whatever platform you're listening to us on, or by sharing us with your fellow DC and Marvel fans.
And if you're tuning into us for the first time, what's up? How's it going, guys?
Where are you from?
But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize.
A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award we post on social media that Jonathan personally draws for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Last week's question, which tied into the news that both Jared Leto and Joe Manganiello would be returning for Zack Snyder's Justice League, was which one villain from the DCEU would you most like to see join the Injustice League?
Yeah, we got quite a few answers. We have a list of honorable mentions to get through, and then we'll name the No Prize winner. Our first honorable mention goes to Sana Farhumand, who said he would like to see Dwayne Johnson The Rock's Black Adam join the Injustice League because he's been waiting to see The Rock as the character since he was first announced for the role, and since Zack Snyder's movie is coming out next year, we could see him all that much sooner.
Yeah, I mean, The Rock's film was supposed to come out late next year. I don't think that's going to happen anymore since it was removed from Warner Brothers' schedule. But you never know. It would be nice to see him along with other villains in the Injustice League. Our next honorable mention goes to Richard Mcgrew, who said that he would want to see Black Manta on the Injustice League because he's formidable and could go toe-to-toe with Aquaman with his Atlantean weaponry and armor. And I loved Black Manta in the Aquaman film. I thought he was one of the coolest characters in that movie. That's saying a lot because there were a lot of cool characters in that movie.
Yeah, he was really well done. I think he'd look really badass next to the likes of like Deathstroke and stuff.
And I definitely think he's more than capable of going up against several of the Justice League members. So that would be really cool to see him on the villain team.
Our next honorable mention goes to Jay Moldenhauer Salazar and Miggy Madden-Geehan, who both gave the answer of Cheetah. And they both mentioned how she was a member of the Injustice Gang in the Justice League cartoon. And Jay also added that if you have Joker and Lex Luthor in the Justice League as well, you'd have the villainous analog to the trinity of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Their villains would be on there.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Plus, the team could use a woman's touch. You know, there aren't too many female DCEU villains.
Oh, there's Harley Quinn.
That's true. I'm actually surprised no one gave that answer. But thanks to everyone who did send us an answer, including John Starosky, Calvin Mims, and Av Mail. Thanks for taking the initiative, guys. But the winners of this week's No Prize are Michael Haggerty and Jeremy Orr, who both said that they would like to see Mr. Mind from Shazam in the Injustice League. Because it would be great to see all of the villains interact with this genius caterpillar.
He was so ridiculous in the Shazam movie. I just, the idea of someone like Deathstroke and Joker interacting with this caterpillar just tickles my fancy.
Ugh. No, but I know what you mean. It's just so ridiculous. It would just be so great if he was on the team. Because he poses a pretty credible threat. You know, he's capable of possession, which, you know, could throw a real wrench into things when you're controlling someone as powerful as the members of the Justice League.
Congrats again to Michael Haggerty and Jeremy Orr for winning this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news.
All right, so last week we learned that the final lead role for Marvel's Disney Plus television shows has been cast, with Oscar Isaac taking the role of Moon Knight. He's in final talks to portray Mark Spector and all of the other personalities that Moon Knight has, which is big news. You know, we recently learned that Iman Vellani, who is a newcomer to acting, was cast as Ms. Marvel, and Tatiana Maslany was tapped to play She-Hulk. And neither of those two are really big names, but Oscar Isaac is. He's a legit movie star coming off films like X-Men Apocalypse and Star Wars, and he's an amazing actor. So on one hand, I'm really excited about this news. On the other hand, I'm a little bit disappointed because I thought that they were going to lean heavily into Mark Spector's Jewish roots for this role.
Yeah, I remember from our Batman vs. Moon Knight episode, you mentioned how the character from the comics has strong ties to his Jewish heritage. It's a big part of the character.
Right, yeah, a big part of his history. And of course, Oscar Isaac could play a Jewish character, or an Egyptian one for that matter, like he did with Apocalypse. But leading up to this news, the star of The Haunting of Bly Manor on Netflix was talking about how he was interested in the role. His name was Oliver Jackson Cohen, and he has an Egyptian Jewish lineage, and he looks pretty spot on as Mark Spector from the comics. So I thought he would have been perfectly cast as Mark Spector, and I really got that drilled deep into my head. And there's always a little bit of disappointment when you have like your perfect fan casting that doesn't come out to be true.
Totally. I would say that Oscar Isaac was not my number one choice for the role at all, but I don't hate it either. I mean, the guy has range.
And that's really important for a character like Moon Knight, who has multiple personality disorder.
Yeah, Moon Knight sort of is Marvel's Batman. And I heard once that Oscar Isaac was up for the role of Batman, so this is kind of fitting in a way.
Oh, really? I could see him as Bruce Wayne, but I'm not sure if I see him as Batman. I don't know.
He could pull off Batman, and I think he'll pull off Moon Knight pretty well.
Now that we have the casting, I just really want to see what the costume's going to look like. I'm so excited for that. Is it going to be white? Is it going to be silver? Is the cape going to be crescent-shaped like in the comics? Just so many questions.
I hope it's white. I hope he goes with a white costume.
Like a ghost.
The real question is that because this is on Disney Plus, is there going to be like blood splatter on the white costume? Probably not.
Probably not, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because Moon Knight is quite a violent character.
Yeah, he's a dark character.
So it seems like they're going to have to kind of neuter him to be on the Disney Plus platform. I don't know. I'm sure the violence will be like The Mandalorian, where it's actually pretty adrenaline-packed, but it's true that you don't need gore to sell action.
No, definitely not.
If you guys don't know much about Moon Knight and you want to learn more about him, definitely check out our Batman vs. Moon Knight duel episode where we go all into his backstory. It was actually our first duel that we ever did.
See, it was episode 2. This is episode 200, coming full circle.
But that brings us to our question of the week.
Who is your favorite Marvel or DC character that we haven't featured in one of our duel episodes yet?
Yeah, we've gone through a ton of great characters, but there are still so many more out there, and we want to know which one you guys want to see the most. Post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media. So that does it for all the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and get into the big 200th episode team duel where we pit the classic Marvel and DC teams against each other, the Justice Society of America versus the Fantastic Four.
Let's do it! Okay, so the JSA versus the Fantastic Four. When we were deciding which teams to do for our third big team episode, I knew right away that I wanted to do the JSA. And I think you knew right away that you wanted to do the Fantastic Four. Now, at first, we weren't quite sure that the teams were a good matchup for each other until we realized that not only were these essentially both comic companies' first teams, but also that the teams dealt with themes of family and legacy.
Yeah, and in terms of power level, they kind of balance each other out too, because this isn't just the 4 Fantastic Four characters that we're pitting against the entire JSA team. It's really Fantastic Four and friends, as it were. Since the simulation model we have set up for team episodes pits 7 characters against 7 characters in a matrix, we always have to go with 7 characters. So I'll be detailing which allies I chose to team up with the Fantastic Four against the JSA as I get into the team's backstory.
Yeah, if you've never listened to one of our duel episodes before, the way we determine a winner between these two characters is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations using their statistics. What's a Monte Carlo simulation? Well, it's a probabilistic model used to determine outcomes through random sampling.
And in our case, it randomizes statistics along a normal distribution, which is a bell curve, as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters we use are based on the official Marvel Power Grid, and we use that criteria to extrapolate the DC character stats. We've included some additional stat categories of our own, such as range, damage potential, and perception, in order to create a more complete and robust simulation.
Now, running these 1000 simulations gives us a percentage of wins for each character, and we declare the one with the higher percentage to be the ultimate victor, given that they're more likely to win any given battle. Now, no one character ever wins 100% of the time. Comics have shown that there's always a way for Batman to defeat Superman. So we feel our method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the comic book stories.
And we use this method because it was the least subjective, most unbiased way to determine who would win. Of course, Jonathan and I are both heavily biased toward our respective allegiances, and instead of debating these matches forever, we just let math decide for us. So there's no fan votes here, and no relying on just feats.
Before we run the simulations, though, we like to break down each character's histories and abilities before improvising a scenario and how we imagine one of the 1000 simulations we run would play out beat for beat. Now, in this case of our 200th episode when we're dealing with a team, we always make sure that everyone who has been on that team has been featured in a Duel episode from the past.
So you're getting the team history here, and if you want to get the character histories, you can go back and listen to those previous episodes.
So let's get into the team backstories for this monumental 200th episode, which is sponsored by the Hulu original series, Hellstrom.
Right, the Marvel Television produced series has all 10 of its episodes on Hulu right now, so if you're like me and hungry for video content based on characters from Marvel Comics, go watch it. The show is not your typical superhero comic book reimagination. It's a mature, scary story with dark humor and supernatural action.
The series deals with the theme of nature versus nurture, wherein Damon and Anna Hellstrom wrestle with their personal demons rising from their chilling family history. The siblings join forces to save their mother as the mystery of their evil, powerful father unravels.
It's a thrilling tale with an incredible ensemble cast that's perfect for this time of year. With Halloween just behind us, when the nights grow longer and darker, if you're in the mood for some fun, suspenseful television, and who isn't, binge Hellstrom only on Hulu today.
Big thanks to Hulu for sponsoring this episode, and now it's time to dive into the history of DC's first superhero team, the Justice Society of America. In 1940, prior to the United States' involvement in World War II, President Franklin D. Roosevelt learned that Adolf Hitler had obtained the Spear of Destiny, a powerful artifact which could be used to conquer all of Europe and eventually the world. Pressured by Congress to keep the US out of the war, President Roosevelt decided to turn to America's masked mystery men, superheroes, who were not only a relatively new concept, but allowed America plausible deniability if they were captured, since they were vigilantes unaffiliated with the government system. President Roosevelt sent two heroes to Europe on a secret mission, the Green Lantern Alan Scott and Jay Garrick the Flash. The two heroes were overwhelmed and captured by Hitler's forces, though, luckily, the mystic Dr. Fate was able to sense on his own that Hitler wielded the spear and recruited other superheroes, specifically Sandman, Hawkman, Hourman, the Spectre, and the Golden Age version of the Atom to fight the Nazis in Europe. Dr. Fate's group met up with Green Lantern and the Flash in Europe after they escaped their capture, and the two warned Dr. Fate that Hitler had used the spear to summon and control an army of mythical Valkyries to escort a prototype long-range bomber set to destroy Washington, D.C. Joining forces, the group was not only able to stop the Valkyrie army and the plane, but also save the president from a Valkyrie assassination. After the ordeal, President Roosevelt suggested the heroes form an official team to protect American shores from the threat of Nazi invasion. Thus, the Justice Society of America was born, with their headquarters originally within a hotel in Capital City. In their first official meeting, they were joined by the teenage, genie-wielding Johnny Thunder and the comedic Abigail Ma Hunkel, the original, powerless Red Tornado. It wasn't long before other heroes were recruited to the team, including Hawkgirl, Starman, Dr. Midnight, Wildcat, Black Canary, and even Wonder Woman for a time. When the United States finally entered into World War II, President Roosevelt activated Article X, drafting all American superheroes, including the JSA, into service as the All-Star Squadron. During their service, the JSA battled Nazi and non-Nazi threats to America, such as the immortal Vandal Savage, the hulkish Solomon Grundy, and the sorcerer Wotan. During a battle against the villain Ian Karkle, the All-Star Squadron were bombarded with temporal energy, which increased their longevity and vitality, causing them to age slower. After the war, in the early 50s, a villain named Perdegaton successfully manipulated US politicians into believing masked vigilantes were a potential threat to America, and the House of Un-American Activities Committee ordered the JSA to reveal their secret identities so that they could be investigated and proven to be loyal Americans, sans communist sympathies. The JSA refused the government order, choosing instead to retire from superheroics rather than put their families and loved ones at risk. The JSA members remained in retirement until the early 1960s, when Jay Garrick met another version of the Flash, Barry Allen. Together, the two Flashes determined that they were from separate dimensions. Barry Allen and the Justice League, which you can learn more about in our Justice League vs. Avengers episode, were from Earth 1, and Jay Garrick and the JSA were from Earth 2. Inspired by the younger Earth 1 team, the JSA reformed and took on new, younger members, including Robin, the Star-Spangled Kid, and Power Girl. Eventually, the superpowered children of the JSA members grew up and requested membership onto the team. Unwilling to put their own children in danger without further training, the JSA declined their membership, which led the younger heroes to form their own team known as Infinity Inc., which included, among others, Hector Hall, aka Silver Scarab, the son of Hawkman and Hawkgirl, Jade and Obsidian, the twins of Green Lantern, Nuklon, who would later go by the name Atom Smasher, the godson of the original Atom, and new versions of Hourman and Dr. Midnight. During the Crisis on Infinite Earths event in the mid-80s, the infinite dimensions of DC's multiverse were merged into a single dimension, retconning some of the team's history and membership. Not long after the event, the JSA learned that the Spear of Destiny had re-emerged and was responsible for an oncoming Ragnarok that would destroy the new single universe. Sacrificing themselves to protect their universe, the JSA fought alongside the Norse gods in an endless cycle of death and rebirth to prevent Ragnarok from reaching Earth. The JSA were seemingly dead, never to return, until the mid-90s, when it was revealed that the oncoming Ragnarok was just a simulation by Odin to prepare for the eventual Twilight of the Gods. Upon their return to Earth, the JSA encountered another time-altering event known as Zero Hour, during which Dr. Fate, Hourman, and the Atom were killed, and the rest of the team, except for Alan Scott, were physically altered to match their actual old ages. The JSA disbanded once again, until the late 90s, when surviving members and new versions of classic members, such as Sandman, Stargirl, and Black Canary, were forced to confront the evil sorcerer Mordru when he tried to control who would become the next Dr. Fate. After stopping him, the JSA decided to function as a mentorship-based team in order to teach up-and-coming heroes the lessons already learned by some of the world's original superheroes. They repurposed the late Sandman's mansion, known as the Brownstone, into their new headquarters/museum, which was curated and cared for by the elderly Abigail Ma Hunkel. Eventually, Hawkman and Power Girl rejoined the team, as did new versions of Hawkgirl, Dr. Midnight, Mr. Terrific, and Johnny Thunder, now Hakeem Thunder, as well as former members of Infinity Inc., Rick Tyler, aka Hourman, Atom Smasher, and Hector Hall as the new Dr. Fate. Eventually, the reformed Shazam villain known as Black Adam joined the team as a way to make up for past misdeeds, though his presence caused a schism within the JSA when several of their members left the team along with him in order to follow a more proactive and violent approach to stopping villains. After reforming with new heroes such as Ma Hunkel's granddaughter, Maxine Hunkel, aka Cyclone, Citizen Steel, grandson of the All-Star Squadron member Commander Steel, and even an elderly Superman from the Kingdom Come dimension, the JSA faced a similar schism after defeating an old god known as Gog, who created the violent anti-hero Magog, who himself, like Black Adam, convinced nearly half of the JSA that the team's morals and ethics were too antiquated for modern villains. A short-lived splinter team, known as the All-Stars, was led by Power Girl for a time before they rejoined the main JSA members. After the Flashpoint event reset DC's continuity, new, young members of the JSA once again existed in an alternate dimension known as Earth 2, which was later destroyed by Darkseid. During the Rebirth event, when it was revealed that Dr. Manhattan of Watchmen was responsible for altering DC's history, the original members of the JSA and their histories were restored to the prime DC continuity. Though there have been many iterations of the JSA, members of its original classic lineup have always been on the team when it's active. That said, it is a team that revolves around the concept of legacy. So for my roster of 7 members that will be a part of this episode's simulations, I will be using a blend of both classic and younger legacy heroes. Specifically, the Green Lantern Alan Scott, the Flash Jay Garrick, and Dr. Fate. Those 3 were major catalysts for the original formation of the team, so I think they're important. I'm also including early member Hawkman, who's probably the team's most popular character thanks to his inclusion in the Saturday morning cartoon Super Friends, and he'll be one of the lead characters in the upcoming Black Adam film. Stargirl is also popular, being the only JSA member to ever have their own television show, and she's a strong legacy character, along with Mr. Terrific, who's like DC's version of Mr. Fantastic, and is one of the longest running leaders of the JSA. And finally, Hourman, another legacy character who holds a mantle that has been in every iteration of the team. So that's my roster: Green Lantern, The Flash, Dr. Fate, Hawkman, Stargirl, Mr. Terrific, and Hourman.
That's a pretty solid lineup. Yeah, definitely represents multiple generations of the JSA while retaining its key core members.
In our last 2 episodes, I didn't really have a problem choosing my roster. I know it was like a challenge for you to do so with the Avengers and the X-Men.
Yeah.
But for this one, I actually did struggle. Like, I could have included Wildcat. I could have included Sandman. I could have included so many other characters. But in the end, I decided to narrow it down to this 7, because that's the number our model goes with.
Right, and again, that's the reason why I'll be using the Fantastic Four plus 3 allies. So let me get into the history of the Fantastic Four. Now, the Fantastic Four aren't really a superhero team. They're a superhero family, bonded by blood, marriage, and unbreakable friendship. Their devotion to one another, closeness, and willingness to protect and sacrifice for each other make them uniquely endearing in the Marvel pantheon. As a group of scientist explorers, the Fantastic Four stories take them where most other heroes never go, facing threats other heroes never imagine. In the course of their adventures, they introduced Marvel readers to Black Panther and Wakanda, Silver Surfer, the Skrulls, and the cosmic side of the universe, the Inhumans and Attilan, Subatomica and the Microverse, the Negative Zone, and so much more. The Fantastic Four have been all around the world, from Atlantis to the edge of the universe, other dimensions, through time, and always back home to each other again. They first met each other in the course of scientific prodigy Reed Richards' postgraduate studies. While attending Empire State University in New York as a teen, Reed met a fellow prodigy named Victor Von Doom, who came to hate and mistakenly blame Reed for the failure of one of his own devices that left him scarred and expelled from the school. Reed's roommate was Benjamin Grimm, who was at the school on a football scholarship. The two became close like brothers, and Reed shared his dream of one day building a starship and journeying into space. Ben told him that if he ever got the chance, he would pilot the ship. Ben graduated from Empire State and became a test pilot for the Air Force, while Reed furthered his education. While enrolled in graduate school in his early 20s, he stayed at a Long Island boarding house where Susan and Johnny Storm lived with their aunt. Sue was another gifted mind, and she and Reed developed feelings for each other. He eventually moved out when he found himself too distracted from his work, and Sue went on to earn her doctorate. Reed eventually began work on his starship using government funding. Though the ship was the first man-made craft capable of traveling beyond the moon to other planets and solar systems, the funding for its first launch was pulled due to the government's skepticism it would work. Reed determined that he would prove the ship's capability to keep the project alive and set up a test flight with his closest confidants as the crew: Ben, Sue, and Johnny, the latter of whom was a skilled technician in his own right. The launch was successful and the crew ventured into space. However, a storm of cosmic radiation enhanced by a chance solar flare bombarded their vessel and doused the four in cosmic rays. They were forced to make a messy emergency landing back on Earth, and among the ship's wreckage, they discovered that the radiation altered their DNA to grant them elemental abilities. Johnny burst into flame and discovered he could fly and control fire. Susan vanished into thin air and learned she could turn invisible. Ben developed a rock-like hide and superhuman strength, and Reed's body became fluid and malleable. The government apprehended the team, and they were placed in a quarantine facility. Ashamed that his error of inadequately shielding his craft had forever changed his friends, Reed silently concluded that the only way for them to be accepted by society was to use their gifts to benefit mankind however possible. Reed was able to convince officials to let the team operate freely after they proved themselves by solving a case of missing nuclear reactors and stopping a rampaging underground monster. Bonded through these events, they collectively dubbed themselves the Fantastic Four, taking the individual names of the Human Torch, Invisible Woman, The Thing, and Mr. Fantastic. Reed rented the top 4 floors of Manhattan's Baxter Building to use as a lab to research their developing powers, as well as work on inventions to benefit mankind. Funded by their patents and royalties, they began adventuring and saving the Earth from the likes of villains such as Mole Man, the Skrulls, the Puppet Master, and Dr. Doom, who was Reed's former colleague and the team's greatest and most persistent antagonist. The four developed a family dynamic, with Reed and Sue often serving as the parental figures to Ben and Johnny's brotherly bickering. After one argument, Johnny left the team and came across the amnesiac Namor the Submariner, the lost king of the underwater city of Atlantis. Namor fell in love with Sue, and though she was attracted to him, she neglected his offer to become queen and chose Reed instead. He proposed to her not long after, and the two were wed in a large ceremony attended by nearly every other Marvel superhero. Despite his unrequited feelings, Namor ended up becoming a valuable and frequent ally to the team. Ben and Johnny also developed their own romantic relationships, Ben with blind sculptress Alicia Masters, and Johnny with every girl he laid eyes on. Eventually, the Silver Surfer came to Earth as a herald for the planet-consuming cosmic entity known as Galactus. The Fantastic Four were the first on the scene, and they fought the Silver Surfer and tried to repel Galactus, but the threat was too strong. They helped convince the Surfer of the value of Earth, and he turned on his master. This bought the Fantastic Four enough time to secure one of Galactus's weapons, the Ultimate Nullifier, which they threatened to use against the World Devourer if he didn't leave Earth, which he did. As punishment for his betrayal, Galactus imprisoned the Silver Surfer on Earth, where he occasionally assisted the Fantastic Four against planetary threats. After making dozens of scientific, dimensional, and universal discoveries, Reed and Sue made their greatest yet when Sue became pregnant and gave birth to their son, whom they named Franklin. The child exhibited vast psychic and reality warping potential at an early age due to his parents' cosmically altered DNA. Sue became pregnant again. However, their daughter was stillborn, though later it was revealed that young Franklin saved his sister's life by sequestering her consciousness in another reality where she was raised by a benevolent Dr. Doom. The Fantastic Four all sacrificed their lives alongside many of Earth's other heroes in order to stop the evil psychic entity known as Onslaught, which you can learn more about in our Titans vs. X-Men episode. Eventually, the heroes were revealed to still be alive, saved by Franklin in a pocket dimension. When the heroes returned, Reed and Sue's daughter was restored to her state as an unborn child, and Dr. Doom helped deliver her, naming her Valeria after his first love. Valeria didn't have powers like her brother, but she was a prodigy like her father and had vast magic potential. Later on, Franklin and Valeria would become kid heroes known as Powerhouse and Brainstorm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Now, during the superhuman civil war, in which heroes found themselves divided over the issue of registering and working on behalf of the government, the Fantastic Four were also divided. Reed joined the pro-registration side and helped Tony Stark build an extra-dimensional prison for superpowered offenders, while Sue and Johnny joined Captain America's anti-registration side. Ben remained neutral and tried to prevent civilian collateral damage during the big brawl between sides. Eventually, Captain America's side lost, which you can learn more about in our Justice League vs. Avengers episode, and the Fantastic Four ended up reconciling. When Annihilus and his Negative Zone army tried to invade Earth through a dimensional gateway in the Baxter Building, Johnny sacrificed his life to save the world and the team by sealing the gateway from the other side. Devastated by Johnny's death, the Fantastic Four reformed as the Future Foundation, an organization focused on solving Earth's problems through science. They recruited Spider-Man into the group, who was one of Johnny's best friends, a frequent ally, and his personal choice to replace him on the team as stated in his will. Eventually, Annihilus resurrected Johnny in the Negative Zone as a means to get him to reopen the gateway, and Johnny escaped to his home dimension and the team was reunited. The Future Foundation constructed a vessel capable of surviving the end of all reality during a time when Marvel's multiverse began collapsing in on itself. Ultimately, reality was saved by Dr. Doom, who usurped the godlike power of the beings known as the Beyonders and recreated the universe in his image. When Reed confronted Dr. Doom, Doom admitted that Reed would have wielded the power more wisely, and the power was transferred to him. The Fantastic Four temporarily disbanded as Reed, Sue, and their kids restored reality and recreated the entire multiverse, while Ben and Johnny went on their own paths on Earth. Johnny inherited billions of dollars from Reed's patents, and he joined the Avengers. Meanwhile, Ben finally proposed to and married his sweetheart, Alicia Masters. And that's their history. For this duel, since our Matrix incorporates a 7-on-7 framework, again, this is going to be Fantastic Four and friends, essentially. So in addition to the primary members, I scoured their list of close allies and former members in order to come up with 3 allies that best represent the Fantastic Four's history and explorative nature. Off the bat, I didn't go with Franklin and Valeria because they're still developing as heroes in the comics, and Franklin is way too powerful for this match, and also, I didn't want to speculate on kids getting violently hurt. But I did go with a hero that has once been a member of the Fantastic Four, and a member of the Fantastic Five in an alternate reality, and a member of the Future Foundation. Also known as Bagman when he's on the team, I went with Spider-Man for the first slot. It's what Johnny would want. Spider-Man could also have been part of our Justice League vs. Avengers rematch in the future, but there are too many other classic Avengers out there for that, and I more closely associate Spider-Man with the Fantastic Four than with the Avengers, since he didn't become a full-fledged, full-time member of the Avengers until the 2000s decade, whereas he was trying to join the Fantastic Four in his very first title issue of The Amazing Spider-Man #1.
It's nice to get Spider-Man on a team. Like, usually he's a solo player.
Yeah.
But it's cool that you were able to find a spot for him here.
The second ally I chose was actually the first other hero the Fantastic Four encountered. He's a Golden Age hero who has consistently popped up in the Fantastic Four books, in part to add romantic tension. I went with Namor the Submariner. It's what Sue would want. I should state that Namor the Submariner, since we did the Duel episode with him against Aquaman, he's since developed the power of hydrokinesis.
What?
Yeah, he got that from Hydro Man, Spider-Man's villain. He can't wield it quite like Mira does, where he can form constructs and things like that, but he can move water from one place to another to flood an environment or open up a big air bubble underwater.
Okay, that's random and convenient.
I mean, I like it. I think it's a good way to help differentiate him from Aquaman.
That's true. Actually, yeah, that'll probably serve him well whenever he makes an appearance in the MCU.
Yeah. The third and final ally I chose wasn't difficult at all. I could have gone with another former member of the team, because at some point, each of the primary members have been temporarily replaced. Crystal and Medusa have filled in for Sue, Ant-Man and Black Panther have filled in for Reed, Luke Cage and She-Hulk have filled in for Ben, and Nova and Spidey have filled in for Johnny. But to beat the JSA, I knew I needed a real powerhouse, with a more varied power set from the others on the team. I went with the Silver Surfer. He's always been a big part of the Fantastic Four's history, he's one of their most frequent allies, and he even co-starred in a movie with them. So the full 7-character lineup is Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, Human Torch, Thing, Silver Surfer, Spider-Man, and the Submariner. With the additions, that feels very Fantastic Four to me, very Silver Age Fantastic Four.
Well, you know what's better than silver, right? Gold, like Golden Age heroes from the JSA. You get it.
No, but the Silver Age was huge for Marvel. That was really the Marvel age where Stan Lee really went and created a vast majority of the Marvel characters that are so popular today.
Whereas DC goes way back as the original universe of original superheroes that are better. Don't even try to deny it. Let's move on.
Hey, it's not who came out first, it's who did it better.
Okay, so DC. All right. Yeah, I agree. Now that we've gone over the team's histories and rosters, let's speculate on how one of the 1,000 simulated matches will go. The winner is determined by simulations, not this speculation, but it's fun to imagine how this could play out.
Yeah, we don't set any rules for this match other than the characters don't know anything about each other going in, except that the other team is a threat that needs to be put down. And we say they start off about 50 meters apart in an environment that has no bearing on the match itself, because we don't take stats for the environment.
Right, because certain characters have advantages in some environments over others, and we want these characters to win on their own merit.
So let's get into it. The characters meet on the battlefield. Who goes first? Let me guess. You're going to start this match off the way you started all of our team matchups, with the Flash going first.
Well, yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, he would go first. That's funny, I have had a Flash in each of these, haven't I?
Yeah, Barry Allen, Wally West, and now Jay Garrick.
The Flash is going to start off by seeing this guy who's on fire, the Human Torch, and running circles around him at super speed to create like a vacuum and extinguish the flame.
The Flash is going to like blow the Human Torch out like a candle?
Yeah, with a wind vortex.
Well, Spider-Man is right there, and he sees what happened, and he's able to use his enhanced reflexes and his spidey sense to get a handle on the speedster, and he shoots webs on the ground right beneath the Flash's feet, causing him to stick to the ground.
Oh no.
And then the Human Torch just reignites his flaming body, and he sets the Flash on fire.
Oh shit! Okay, but by this point, Mr. Terrific is going to send his T-Spheres over to the Flash, and they're going to douse the Flash and the Human Torch in flame-extinguishing chemicals, like fire retardant.
You just keep trying to put the Human Torch out, huh?
Yeah, he just looks like the most visible threat, I think.
Yeah.
I do have to mention that the T-Spheres are also scanning the opposing team for intel as this is happening.
Okay. Well, Mr. Fantastic sees these cool technological devices, these T-Spheres, and he wants to get his hands on one because, he's a big tech guy himself. So he stretches out and snatches one out of the air.
And then he gets electrocuted when their defense systems kick in.
Yeah, that makes sense. He doesn't know that, so he's kind of stunned. Meanwhile, the Thing, he picks up Invisible Woman, who creates this huge spherical force field around herself, like the size of a house. And the Thing hurls her like a bowling ball to the JSA group, and she just scatters them like a bunch of pins. Strike!
Okay. They probably didn't see this coming either, right? Because she's invisible?
Right, yeah. They're just like, what the hell hit us?
So Dr. Fate, he's going to summon this magical sandstorm to find where the invisible force source is.
Okay.
And he sees that there's this invisible sphere that's not being affected by the magic sand. So using his telekinesis, he summons that sphere towards him. And he goes intangible to go inside it, where he finds Invisible Woman. And telekinetically, he just chokes her out.
What is he, Wayne Brady? That's messed up. Well, Namor sees this, and he's defensive of Sue, so he's not having it. So he hurls his trident with all his might right at Dr. Fate, and the trident sticks right into his back. So Dr. Fate drops Invisible Woman, and she falls to the floor and turns invisible again.
Okay, but Hawkman is gonna quickly pull that trident out of Dr. Fate's back, and then he's just gonna streak through the sky toward Namor and spear him with his own trident.
Except that when he goes to stab him with the trident just passes right through Namor's body.
What?
And kind of disintegrates and reforms in Namor's hand. Because the Silver Surfer saw what was about to happen, and he protected his former Defenders teammate by rendering the trident intangible and then giving it back to him.
Okay.
So now Namor has his trident, and he's going up against Hawkman's mace or whatever, and they're just kind of battling it out in this gladiatorial aerial combat.
That's cool.
And Silver Surfer goes in to assist.
But before he can, Stargirl, she uses her cosmic staff to generate a tractor beam that lifts her teammate Hourman off of the ground, and she just flings him really fast straight into Silver Surfer, knocking him off of his board.
Could Hourman knock Silver Surfer off of his board? I guess
he's super
if he's
strong.
thrown fast enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Silver Surfer's temporarily grounded. Meanwhile, Spider-Man and Mr. Fantastic have kind of comboed up in that Mr. Fantastic has turned into this spiky ball, and Spider-Man is swinging him around in the air connected to a web line, like a giant Morning Star flail,
Okay.
And he just swings spiky Mr. Fantastic into Stargirl, knocking her away and forcing her to drop her cosmic staff. And Mr. Fantastic quickly just pounces on it, because he's like, "Oh, look, more technology for me to analyze."
Okay, but what does he want to analyze it for?
Science stuff. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
He's probably trying to figure out how to work it.
The thing is, though, is that Stargirl has telekinetic control over her cosmic staff, so she just summons it back to her.
But he can stretch, so he's pulling it, keeping it from going back to her. They're having like this tug of war of sorts over the cosmic staff.
Okay.
So they're like going back and forth, and then Mr. Fantastic just stretches his foot out to kick Stargirl right in the solar plexus, sending her flying back. And Mr. Fantastic quickly analyzes the staff and figures out how to work it.
I don't think I like this, that Mr. Fantastic is like analyzing all this technology. I'm gonna have Green Lantern intervene. He's gonna cause Mr. Fantastic to get wrapped up in this straitjacket so he can't use his arms, and it prevents him from toying with the cosmic staff, which just flies back to Stargirl.
Oh, I'm gonna get that back.
Okay.
Going back to the Silver Surfer, who got knocked off his board by Hourman, he's going to telekinetically call his surfboard back to him, and it's going to slam into Hourman before the surfer hops back on it and flies back into battle.
Where Mr. Terrific, meanwhile, is swarming the Thing with T-spheres, just knocking him around.
Knocking him around?
Yeah, they're strong.
Well, I don't know if those would actually hurt Thing too much. He's probably just annoyed by him. He's like, get out of here. He's like swatting at him, and he actually like manages to like grab some and like crush him in his hands.
That's fine. I have like 50 more around him, which all simultaneously like spray him with like sleeping knockout gas, putting him to sleep.
But before the gas can affect him too much, he does this like thunderous shockwave clap with his hands that sends the gas like blowing away from him and the T-spheres as well from the shockwave. So he's a little bit drowsy now, but he's not knocked out. And he stumbles over to Mr. Terrific and swings at him and just punches his head off.
Jeez. I mean, he's drowsy. It's not going to be hard to dodge. Mr. Terrific is a world-class athlete.
He can't dodge forever, though.
No, before the Thing can even reach Mr. Terrific is rescued from the whole situation by the Flash.
Fucking dumb.
Can't touch this.
Meanwhile, the Human Torch is putting the heat on Dr. Fate by engulfing him in like this tornado, this whirlwind of fire.
That is totally not even going to hurt Dr. Fate. Like,
Why?
He's magic. He's just gonna, like, take all of that flame and condense it into, like, this giant, like, Eye of Horus above his head in the sky. And it just shoots these, like, flaming hailstones all throughout the battlefield at the Fantastic Four members.
Oh, that's a pretty cool visual.
Yeah, it's dope.
I'm picturing, like, the Eye of Sauron, just, like, shooting fireballs at everybody.
Sort of.
But the Invisible Woman erects invisible force fields around everyone on the team so they don't get hurt by these flaming hailstones.
Of course.
And Spider-Man swings in and just does this swinging kick into Dr. Fate's face, knocking off his helmet. And then he webs Dr. Fate's helmet, covering it with webs and sticking it down.
Dr. Fate's really gonna want to get that helmet back. I mean, it doesn't give him his power, but his power is greatly diminished without it. So while he's trying to unstick his helmet, let's check back in with the Hawkman and Namor fight. I'm gonna say that during the hailstone barrage, Namor got distracted enough trying to block the hailstones that Hawkman got the upper hand. So now he has Namor pinned on the ground, just bashing his brains in with his nth metal mace.
No, because the Silver Surfer just flies in and disintegrates Hawkman with a cosmic beam.
What?
Silver Surfer is like my perfect Deus Ex Machina.
Well, you know who's mine? Hourman, because he has precognition. You remember when Silver Surfer like bashed his surfboard into Hourman?
Yeah.
This whole time, Hourman's been hanging onto that like fin at the bottom of the board. And he's just been flying around with him. So Hourman foresaw that Hawkman was gonna die, so at the last minute, he manages to climb onto the board and stop him from killing Hawkman.
How is he gonna do that?
I don't know, he's gonna like grab his fist and then
get disintegrated himself. So while he may prevent Hawkman from getting blasted by the cosmic beam, he basically just sacrificed himself. Because he's not stopping Silver Surfer from blasting.
That's true. It's a noble cause.
So Hourman's the first one to drop in this match.
Very heroically. That's fine. His dad would be proud. And, you know, it's not a total waste because since Hawkman's still alive, he still takes out Namor.
No, because Namor saves himself at the very last minute by summoning this like wave, this water blast, to crash into Hawkman and like wash him away. Just really wanted to squeeze in some hydrokinesis in there.
Right, I'm sure.
So Hawkman's being like washed away, and Namor gets up and he flies over to Stargirl, and they start going at it with their weapons. Namor with his trident and Stargirl with her cosmic staff.
Stargirl against Namor?
Yeah, she's going down.
She's pretty good with her staff, but yeah, he's a lot stronger than her. So I'm going to say that Green Lantern is going to come to Stargirl's rescue, you know, teamwork, and just create like this fish hook that hooks into Namor and pulls him away from Stargirl towards Green Lantern.
So as Namor's being pulled toward Green Lantern, Namor just stabs Green Lantern with the trident.
Except that would do nothing because Green Lantern really doesn't have a physical form. He's made of green mystic flame.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Forgot about that.
So as this trident is like sticking through him, Green Lantern just incinerates Namor.
Ah, crap. That makes sense. I guess Namor's out of this match now. So we're each down 1. But what's Spider-Man doing? I'm going to say he's fighting Mr. Terrific.
Okay. That's kind of cool. I could totally see them just like spiraling around each other in the air with like T-spheres all around him.
Oh, I forgot that Mr. Terrific can fly.
Yeah, and Spider-Man's probably actually like swinging from his T-spheres as Mr. Terrific is like attacking him with laser beams.
But Spidey has the spider sense, and he's dodging the laser beams, and he ends up webbing Mr. Terrific right in his face, so he can't see what he's doing.
Now, you should know better than that. Mr. Terrific's mask protects him from stuff like that. So he's probably not able to see in like the spectrum of light anymore, in which case he'll just switch to infrared, and he can still see Spider-Man's heat signature.
He can see through the webbing.
Right. So now with Spider-Man's heat signature locked on, Mr. Terrific has no trouble tagging Spider-Man with one of those lasers.
But where did Spider-Man get hit with the laser? Don't answer that, I'll tell you. It was, somewhere non-essential like the arm. How does Mr. Terrific control the T-spheres?
It's mental. He has like these implants in his ear, and I think they connect to his nervous system, so he's able to control them, with his brain.
Well, Silver Surfer just flies in, because teamwork, and he converts Mr. Terrific's tech implants into just putty. So Mr. Terrific can no longer control these T-spheres. And he just falls out of the sky onto the ground.
Okay, but Mr. Terrific is an athlete, so, he doesn't get too damaged by the fall. He just tucks and rolls.
Yeah, right next to Spider-Man, who's right there, and the two start hand-to-hand fighting.
Yeah, and Mr. Terrific is a master of several forms of martial arts, so...
Spider-Man knows the way of the spider, and this time he's not going to pull his punches, which is what he usually does when he goes up against non-enhanced beings. So he punches Mr. Terrific right in the face, and pretty much Mr. Terrific's face explodes.
Jeez.
So he's out of here. And Spider-Man grabs one of those T-spheres, and he starts studying that technology.
Stop using my own stuff against me. What are you doing? Meanwhile, Flash spots Invisible Woman, okay?
How?
One of the times when she happens to be visible, so he's going to take advantage of the situation, and he's just going to charge her at full speed.
Yeah, right into an invisible wall, like a fly on a windshield. Splat.
No, dude, he phases right through that. His reflexes are like light speed, so once his helmet gets like the faintest touch that it's about to run into something, he just goes intangible.
Oh my god. If he didn't have that stupid-ass big helmet, that probably wouldn't have happened.
So once he's through that wall, he just keeps rushing Sue, and then he just like phases his hand right through her heart and her chest. And now she's out.
No, because the Silver Surfer flies over to her, and Johnny sees this, and he's super pissed, and he freaking just incinerates Flash, like goes full supernova on him.
Or he'd like to, but Stargirl like contains him within a force field, preventing the blast from even reaching the Flash.
Stargirl can contain Human Torch's full supernova blast within a force field?
I mean, yeah.
No. This blast is like way too powerful for this rookie. She tries to contain it with a force field, but it's not quite strong enough, and it forms like this little crack, and the full force of the Nova Flame comes through the crack and just engulfs her, reducing her to ash.
What? Why does that happen? That's not fair.
Life's not fair. Deal with it.
Jeez. I could kind of see that happening. A lot of the times in DC, this stuff is dependent on willpower, and Stargirl's still such a young hero.
Right.
All right, whatever.
She's out of this match. That being said, the Human Torch's supernova blast does exhaust all of his flame powers.
That's right. Okay, so the Flash sees that the Human Torch is no longer on fire, so he's not going to let this moment go to waste. He rushes over to Human Torch, vibrates his hand again, and just like scrambles his brain.
Jeez.
Fatality.
Well, when Stargirl died, Mr. Fantastic picked up her cosmic staff. And, he knows how to use it now, but he converts the Star Rod's power battery that absorbs, like, starlight, right?
Yeah, stellar radiation.
And he converts it into, like, this energy vacuum. And he points it at the Flash, and he, like, triggers it, and it absorbs all of the ambient energy around the Flash, and it kind of, like, in effect, freezes him in place.
What, like Captain Cold?
Yeah, kind of. And then the Thing runs over because he's pissed that Johnny died, and he just punches Flash, just shattering him. So Flash is out of this match.
Turning the cosmic staff into an energy vacuum. That was a really good move.
Thanks. Yeah, I used my Mr. Fantastic brain for that one.
Okay, but Green Lantern just saw his best friend since like the 1940s die. So what destroys rock? Paper. Or, a jackhammer. Green Lantern just creates like this giant flaming jackhammer that just I was gonna say jacks off. That just hammers things' head right off.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, just pushes him down onto the ground, and it's just dzz, gone. Things out of the match. Ugh. Now, also at this point, Dr. Fate has finally managed to get his helmet unstuck, and he just puts that sucker back on his head.
Uh-oh.
And he sees Spider-Man tinkering with that T-sphere that he got. So he just conjures this magic webbing that's glowing, and it just drops onto Spider-Man, trapping him down on the ground. At which point these poisonous scarabs manifest and devour Spider-Man. Try using your spider sense to get out of that one.
That's out of the Mummy or something.
Yeah.
That's a horrible way to go. All right, who do I have left? Silver Surfer and Green Lantern. They're trading big energy blasts with each other, going back and forth.
Uh-huh.
Because they're both energy-based characters.
Yeah, Green Lantern can create constructs, though. And what's the Surfer's biggest fear? A giant shark. So Green Lantern's probably chasing Silver Surfer with this shark, just chomping down it.
Well, Silver Surfer can't create constructs, but he can affect mass and gravity. So he reaches his power cosmic over to Green Lantern, and he just compresses Green Lantern's body into a black hole, essentially.
What?
Just wiping it from space and time.
Dang. And I guess that would take the shark with it if there's no one controlling the shark anymore.
Right.
Okay, but Dr. Fate sees this, and he's going to put this time aura, this temporal aura around Silver Surfer that magically reverses time until Silver Surfer reverts back to Norrin Rad. So he's just this normal man. At which point, Dr. Fate manifests this Ankh energy blade and just sends it right through Norrin Rad, killing him. So Silver Surfer's gone now.
I'm not gonna lie, that was actually a pretty badass move. Dr. Fate is kind of a badass.
He's really powerful. He's really cool.
He's probably the most powerful guy left on the field.
For sure.
We're gonna have to fix that. I don't know how. Except I do know how. Because Mr. Fantastic has that cosmic staff that he repurposed as an energy absorber. And he further repurposes it specifically into a magical energy absorber using the T-sphere that Spider-Man was tinkering with as this kind of controller. And basically he builds the Ghostbusters ghost trap.
What?
You saw the movie, right? You've seen the movie.
Yeah.
So he throws it on the ground, kind of near Dr. Fate's feet, and then he activates it with his T-sphere, and it zaps Dr. Fate with this electrical beam that starts pulling Dr. Fate and his magical energy into the trap, sealing him.
When did Mr. Fantastic become a Ghostbuster?
If they can make that device, he can make that device.
So it sucks Dr. Fate in, but it's gonna leave the helmet behind, okay? I think all I have left is Hawkman. But him and Dr. Fate, they go way back to ancient Egypt. So Hawkman's gonna fly over and pick up the helmet and then put on the Helm of Fate, becoming Hawk Fate. Okay? And his wings turn golden and triple in size. He just looks total badass. So now that Hawkman is a Super Saiyan sorcerer, he just flaps his wings and turns Mr. Fantastic into dust instantaneously. Nice. And then he flaps his wings again, and boom, Mr. Fantastic is just gone with the wind. And that's it. Match over.
But then Hawkman's head just explodes.
I'm sorry, what?
Because Silver Surfer was able to heal Invisible Woman from the Flash's attack. So she's still alive. She's just been hidden this whole time. And she created a force bubble inside of Hawk Fate's skull and just expanded it, killing Hawkman, Dr. Fate, and really ending this match.
I actually think that Hawkman, with his enhanced senses, combined with the Helm of Fate, would allow him to see this attack coming. So before she could explode his head, he sees her first and lets out this sonic scream that just vaporizes her.
No, I'm pretty sure his head explodes. But that's a great place to leave this match on a cliffhanger. So let's go ahead and run the simulations of these battles, find the winner, and see what actually happens at the end of this match.
I love these team duels. They're so much fun.
Yeah, it's fun to go no holds barred action with multiple characters. That being said, though, it is kind of a pain to run that many simulations.
Right. As we've mentioned before in previous Duel episodes, usually we're only comparing two sets of data against each other, one character against another character. When we're dealing with teams, we're comparing matrices of data against each other. So it's each member of each team going against each member of every other team, and then we average the results.
What was surprising was that this matchup was essentially a bunch of mid-tier characters teamed up with one god-level character on each side. Silver Surfer and Dr. Fate were both insanely powerful, like way more powerful than their teammates.
Yeah, I think the stat ranges in this team duel was much more broad than our past team episodes.
Yeah, if you look at the win rate for Dr. Fate, it's 91.7%. He won a vast majority of all of his battles. And Silver Surfer was up there too. He won 83.4% of all of his matches.
Yeah, so I had the most powerful character, but I also had the weakest character in Our Man. He only won 17.8% of his matches. So it kind of balanced itself out.
Yeah, that was unfortunate for Our Man. Like, we kind of matched them up powers-wise with Spider-Man because they're both super strong and agile, and they both have, like, precognitive warning systems.
Yeah.
So on paper, that kind of worked, but in reality, Our Man just got his ass kicked all the time. When trying to come up with the characters that we use for these team matches, we do try to kind of pair them up so that we have an idea that the teams are balanced. So like Mr. Terrific pairs with Mr. Fantastic, Stargirl with Invisible Woman, Green Lantern with Human Torch, Flash with Thing, Dr. Fate with Silver Surfer, Hawkman with the Submariner, and Our Man with Spider-Man.
Yeah, usually that method serves us pretty well in terms of balance, and this duel is no exception. The results were really close.
Yeah, I'm kind of nervous, especially since the poll results from the poll that we gave to you guys on social media say that JSA is going to win.
Yeah, by 52%. That may be the closest social media poll that we've ever done. But if you had to guess who's going to come out on top, who do you think would?
My guess is Fantastic Four.
And why is that?
Because that's what I want.
Well, the winner of our 200th episode duel is the Fantastic Four.
Yes! Yes! Oh, man. I really needed this win.
The Fantastic Four won by 51.4%, or 514 out of the 1,000 matches.
That is very close. I don't think it's as close as our X-Men vs. Titans episode, which I think was like 508 wins, I think. But this one came down to the wire for sure.
The JSA only won 48.6% of the time, and I'm actually kind of surprised. Going into this match, I thought the JSA had a huge advantage. Silver Surfer on your team changed the whole dynamic.
Well, yeah, I needed somebody powerful enough to go up against Dr. Fate, and in the end, you still had the most powerful character. I think I just had the more well-rounded team. I mean, honestly, like, if it was just the 4 Fantastic Four characters, who knows how well they would have fared against, like, the primary 4 JSA characters. But our model has always been 7 versus 7, so it's not quite the Fantastic Four winning, but it's the Fantastic Four and their allies winning. And I'll take it.
So close! I really wanted the JSA to win, but it was a good match.
Yeah, good match. DC sucks. Fuck you.
Jeez. Jeez. Just for that, you're going to lose the next team match. Which will actually be episode 225.
That's right. We're actually going to start doing these big team duels now every 25 episodes as opposed to every 50. That way we have more than one big team duel match per year. We'll have 2 per year now. So look forward to episode 225 when we pit Suicide Squad against Marvel's Street Heroes, who I'm going to call the Defenders because that's what the Netflix show did.
Right, so characters like Daredevil and Luke Cage and Iron Fist.
Exactly.
So look forward to that at the end of April.
In the meantime, we have lots of fun episodes coming your way, including our holiday charity episode where we're going to pit Herbie against Keelix, and we commissioned special artwork for that by artist Matt Turner. And at the end of the year, we're going to have our Brothers Awards, although that might not work out quite well for 2020, so we might mix that up just a little bit. And of course, we have plenty of great reviews and other duel matches coming your way.
So yeah, please subscribe now to our show if you haven't, and please leave a rating or review on your platform of choice. Sharing this show on social media or in person is also a big help for us.
Don't forget, guys, that we have a promo going on right now with cufflinks.com, where if you use promo code DUEL15 at checkout on any purchase that you make on their site, you'll get 15% off. That's DUEL15.
Yeah, do that right after this episode. And then after that, let us know what you thought of the match by writing to us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can find links to all of our accounts by visiting our website, dynamicduel.com.
And also, don't forget to binge the Hulu original series, Hellstrom.
Yeah, all 10 episodes are now available.
We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson, Jace Crump, John Starosky, John Speas, Isaiah Bethune, and Zachary Hepburn for helping make this podcast possible. And we'll talk to you guys next week when we review the 2011 film X-Men First Class.
See you guys then. Up, and away.
True believers.